They called her lonely, like they thought she was broken, but she wasn't searching for anyone, she was searching for herself. Seattle, Washington. Gray clouds drifted slowly over Lake Union. In a small third-floor apartment, Evelyn Moore sat by her window with a cup of chamomile tea. 44, never married, no children, and no roommate. The silence wasn't new. It had been her companion for over a decade. She didn't fight it anymore. She didn't fill it with music or distractions. She just let it be. Some evenings were heavier than others, but this one was strangely calm. Her friends had stopped asking, "When will you settle down?" long ago. Because Evelyn had settled, just not the way they expected. There was a time when Evelyn believed in the story everyone else followed: college, love, marriage, kids. She had come close once to a man named Ryan, but somewhere between expectations and reality, they both realized she was searching for something else. Not another person, but herself. She remembered the day she left, a sunny morning in Boston, suitcase in hand, no plan except one: to be alone. Not because she was broken, but because she needed to understand who she was without anyone else's voice clouding her mind. It was in a dusty corner of a second-hand bookstore in Portland where she found it. Modern Man in Search of a Soul by Carl Jung. She had never heard of Jung before, but as she flipped through the pages, one sentence stood out like a lightning strike. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. She bought the book that day, and it changed everything. For the first time, Evelyn stopped trying to fix her life. No dating apps, no productivity hacks. Instead, she sat with her discomfort. She started journaling, meditating, walking alone in Discovery Park. She cried some nights, not from pain, but from release. Carl Jung's writings helped her peel back the layers: the childhood patterns, the inherited fears, the constant people-pleasing. She realized she had spent her entire life being a version of herself that made others comfortable. Now she was learning to be real, not pleasant. There were days when Evelyn didn't speak a single word. No texts, no calls, no meetings. At first, it felt strange, almost unnatural. But in that silence, something sacred was unfolding. She began having inner conversations, not voices, but thoughts that had always been too quiet to hear. She asked herself hard questions. What do I want? What do I believe in? What if I'm enough as I am? No one was there to answer, and that was the point. At the grocery store, a cashier once asked, "You're always alone, no husband?" Evelyn smiled softly and replied, "Nope, just me." The cashier nodded awkwardly and said nothing more. The world didn't know what to make of women like Evelyn. Not grieving, not waiting, just existing on their own terms. To some, she was a mystery. To others, a threat. But Evelyn had stopped explaining herself. Solitude wasn't her wound. It was her strength. Every Sunday morning, Evelyn took a long walk around Green Lake. Headphones in, classical music playing, warm coffee in hand. She watched the families, the couples, the children, and she smiled, not with envy, but with peace. She had learned to appreciate life without needing to own every part of it. Her life wasn't full in the way others defined it, but it was whole in a way that felt deeply, quietly right. That night, Evelyn lit a candle and stood in front of her mirror. No makeup, no pretense, just her reflection. She looked at herself like she would look at someone she loved. Slowly, softly. She whispered, "You're not alone. You're with me." That was the moment she knew. She hadn't been escaping love. She had been learning to give it to the one person who had gone unloved the longest. herself. In a drawer beneath Evelyn's bed lay a collection of unsent letters. Letters she had written to people she once loved. Her mother, an old friend, even Ryan, the man she once thought she'd marry. But she never mailed them. They weren't for them. They were for her. Each letter was a way to say, I forgive you. I release you. But most of all, I forgive myself. Some tears came with those pages, but they weren't bitter. They were the kind that cleaned something deep within. There was a time Evelyn feared the silence. It used to remind her of what was missing. But now, that same silence felt like a warm blanket, a safe place where nothing fake could enter. In that silence, she read poetry. She stared at the sky. She cooked slowly, thoughtfully. Life had slowed down. And in that slowness, she found a rhythm, not of the world outside, but of the one inside her. One Thursday evening, Evelyn attended a local psychology meetup in downtown Seattle. It was focused on Jungian therapy. Not a big crowd, just 10 people, most strangers. But that night, as they spoke about the shadow self, Evelyn shared for the first time. She said, I think I spent most of my life trying to be liked. Now I just want to be real, even if it means being misunderstood. The room was quiet, but not cold. Someone nodded, another smiled. She was alone, but never lonely in that moment. Back home, Evelyn scrolled through her old messages. Birthdays missed, conversations unfinished, apologies unsaid. But she didn't feel regret anymore. Some connections fade, not because of anger, but because of growth. She no longer chased people. If someone truly wanted to know her, not the version built to please, they'd find her. But she wouldn't shrink to fit anyone else's mold again. Not now. Not ever. Her copy of Carl Jung. The red book was now filled with margin notes, underlines, sticky tabs. She reread this line often. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Evelyn smiled. That's what her journey had become. Not a rejection of love, but an embrace of truth. Not bitterness, just clarity. She didn't need the world to understand her path. She only needed to keep walking it, honestly. A coworker once joked, "You must be hard to live with." Evelyn might have laughed awkwardly once, but that day, she simply replied, "No, I'm just finally easy to live with. For myself." No guilt, no nervous smile, just a truth, calmly spoken, and it stayed with her the whole day, like sunlight through a crack in a wall. She realized how often women are taught to apologize for being whole. That day, she didn't. One weekend, Evelyn drove alone to Olympic National Park. She hiked a quiet trail through misty pine trees. No signal, no noise, just the sound of her boots on earth. At the peak, she sat on a rock and looked out at the vast wilderness. She closed her eyes and breathed in deep. No one knew she was there, and somehow, that made it more beautiful. Solitude wasn't her escape, it was her home. Back in her apartment, candles flickered in the evening light. Evelyn stood by her window, the same one she had sat beside all those years. But now, something had shifted. She wasn't waiting anymore. Not for a partner. Not for approval. Not for life to start. It had already started. The day she chose silence over noise, truth over comfort, and herself over everything else. She turned off the lights, whispered a quiet thank you into the night, and went to sleep. Not as someone who gave up on love, but as someone who finally chose her own.